This is an overview of unemployment and inflation. The labor force is the sum of the employed and unemployed. Well, who's in the labor force? Included in the labor force are anybody that's employed, that's part-time or full-time, and anybody that is considered unemployed. But unemployed definition is that you are unemployed, but you have been looking for work in the last 4 weeks. If they're collecting unemployment payments, then they would be considered unemployed. Now, the labor force participation rate. The labor force participation rate is the percentage of working age population participating in the labor force. Typically, a working age person is defined as between the ages of 16 and 64. People in those age groups who are not counted as participating in the labor force are typically students, homemakers, and persons under the age of 64 who are retired. In the United States, the labor force is usually around 67 to 68%. So, now, one of the problems when we count the unemployment rate is, remember, it's the unemployed divided by the labor force is the unemployment rate. So, the problem that we have with this is that not everyone is included in the labor force. Who's not? So we have category of not available for work. If you are a full-time student, you are not part of the labor force, therefore you're not quote-unquote unemployed. If you're a homemaker, you're not part of the labor force. If you're retired, if you're part of the military. Another reason that the unemployment number can be really skewed is that available for work but not currently looking for work people. So the very first category is called discouraged workers. This is someone who has not looked for work in the past 4 weeks. So let's say I was unemployed for 2 years and I stopped getting unemployment payments and I just stopped looking for work because I'm not going to get it. I'm a discouraged worker. Well, then I'm no longer unemployed. Now that I stopped looking for work, no longer unemployed. Other people who are unemployed, people who are not currently looking because of childcare or transportation issues. So let's say I want to work, but I don't have childcare and it's too expensive for me, so I am not looking for work. Well, I'm not unemployed then. And then we have a huge category of underemployed. This can mean anything from part-time work instead of full-time work. And a lot of this is happening now. People's hours are being cut because they don't want to have to pay health insurance for them. So therefore, they are cutting the hours to less than 30. So you have to have 2 part-time jobs when you really want a full-time job, or maybe you have 1 part-time job that used to be full-time. Or this underemployed could mean, I have a engineering degree, but I am stocking shelves somewhere in the back room because I can't find an engineering job or something like that. So, when we talk about the unemployment rate, it is unemployed, so that means anybody looking for work in the last 4 weeks who is not employed, and the labor divided by the labor force times 100. That is the unemployment rate. So what do you think might be wrong with this calculation? There's a whole video, and I'm actually going to post this on YouTube. I'm going to post this on Moodle because it's easier to watch from there. So I'm going to skip this and give you a video to watch about it. Can we ever have zero unemployment? There is a natural unemployment rate. There are quotes that it's between 3 and 4%. There are thoughts that potentially we don't have to have zero unemployment, but there's different types of unemployment. So, first one is called frictional unemployment. This is a mismatch of jobs and workers, short term. It's considered the job searching process. As an industry or technology changes, we will always have some sort of frictional unemployment. We stop manufacturing typewriters, so that industry goes away, but then we have a new industry, and these people switch jobs, and they become employed again. Then we have what is considered structural unemployment. This is a constant mismatch of workers and jobs. Think of industries that still have unfilled jobs despite high unemployment rate. Things like STEM careers, we've heard this focus, science, technology, engineering, and math. we still have unfilled jobs, although there are people who don't have jobs, they don't have the skill set. So this is what is called structural unemployment. And then we have what is called cyclical unemployment, and this is caused by a business cycle or recession. So in 2008, we had what was a recession, and so businesses weren't hiring and they were laying off employees, and this is cyclical unemployment. When business gets better, the idea is cyclical unemployment goes away. So now let's talk about price level. So what is price level? It's an average basket of goods, right? So we take this and it is the average price of goods and services in the economy. Why does this matter? Well, we could have something called inflation. Inflation is a percentage of increase in price level from one year to the next. Think about things, maybe your parents say this or someone you know says this, and they always say, when I was younger, that cost $0.25 or that cost $1. The cost of education is on the rise. So, if the average price level increases from one year to the next, that's considered inflation. Historically, we have about 3% inflation every year. Deflation is a decline in the price level. So deflation can happen because there are things that we can do, which we'll talk about later in this course, to try to change the price level. Now, when we're talking about inflation, deflation, what is an interest rate? So a nominal interest rate is an interest rate stated on a loan. So that could be on a graduate school loan. I think the interest rate is 6.9% or something around that. Mortgages have hovered around 4 to 5% recently. But the real interest rate is adjusted for inflation. So what that means is, well, I'm going to get my money back a year later. It's not worth the same as if I got it today. So a real interest rate is adjusted for inflation. So this is a general overview of unemployment and inflation.